By the time the fake cop attempted to handcuff my 17-year-old daughter on the front porch, the blue security light bar clearly meant for HOA patrol was still crudely duct-taped to the roof of his car. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for trespassing on common property," the man declared, his voice cracking noticeably on the word arrest. His tactical vest hung loosely around his midsection, as if it had been retired 5 years earlier but never removed from the box. Chloe stood there in an oversized flannel shirt and fuzzy socks, staring down at the cheap plastic handcuffs in disbelief. "This is my dad's cabin," she said slowly. "I live here more than you do." Behind the so-called officer, 2 more self-appointed enforcers lingered on the gravel driveway, arms crossed, attempting to appear intimidating in their matching Pinterest Lake HOA security baseball caps. From inside the cabin, a chair scraped against the floor. I opened the door, one eyebrow already raised. In my left hand, I held a coffee mug. In my right, a phone, still on an active call with the speaker engaged. "Yeah, I'm watching it unfold right now," I said into the phone. 3 individuals with fake badges attempting a custodial arrest on my minor daughter. On speaker, a calm voice responded. "Understood, Chief. Units are 10 minutes out. Maintain visual. Do not engage unless necessary." I stepped fully into the doorway, finally noticing the leader's vest patch, HOA enforcement officer. I took a slow sip of coffee, my eyes turning flat and cold. "Gentlemen," I said, "I'm Arthur Mitchell. I command the United States Marshals for this district, and you have just made several career-limiting decisions today. 2 months earlier, I had purchased the cabin specifically to escape this exact kind of nonsense. I was 47, widowed and exhausted in a way that sleep could never fix. After 20 years in the United States, Marshals service-tracking fugitives, escorting judges, and occasionally protecting extremely anxious witnesses, I wanted only one thing: quiet. So when I discovered a weathered A-frame overlooking Cedar Ridge Lake in a gated community called Cedar Ridge Retreat, I thought, sure, how bad could a lake house be? I signed the papers. I skimmed exactly 3 pages of the covenants before my eyes, glazed over at phrases like harmonious exterior finishes and rustic aesthetic consistent with lodge lifestyle. Whatever, I simply wanted a place where my daughter Chloe could escape the city and where no one was trying to kill anyone. The first few weekends were perfect. Fishing off the dock, making pancakes on a cast iron skillet that weighed more than Chloe's entire backpack, teaching her how to build a proper fire without resembling a pyromaniac. The HOA existed like faint background static, a quarterly email about boat stickers, a reminder not to leave kayaks on the shore, some Facebook group drama about loud music. Then I met her. Brenda Kensington, president of the Cedar Ridge Retreat Property Owners Association, radiated the energy of someone who had been denied the role of middle school hall monitor and had spent the rest of her life correcting that cosmic injustice. She introduced herself at the community dumpster because, of course she did. "Mr. Mitchell," she said, materializing over my shoulder just as I tossed in a trash bag. "I'm Brenda. I chair the Architectural Review, Security, and Social Committees." I nodded. "That sounds busy. We like to keep Cedar Ridge safe and orderly." Her smile never reached her eyes. "We get a lot of outsiders trying to sneak in. Renters, teenagers, jet ski people." "Jet ski people," I repeated. "You'll see," she said cryptically. "Oh, and we expect you at the next HOA meeting. Attendance is mandatory for all new owners. We're discussing enforcement enhancements." It sounded like a threat. I chalked it up to typical HOA weirdness. I should have paid closer attention. It started small. A courtesy notice arrived by email after Chloe parked her car at a slight angle in the gravel spot. "Vehicle not centered in designated area. Please review parking guidelines." Then a warning about our firewood stack being visible from the road. Even though the road was a dirt path used exclusively by deer and exactly one neighbor who jogged in jeans. I rolled my eyes, paid my dues, and ignored the noise. Compared to transporting organized crime witnesses, arguing about firewood felt like light comedy. Then the security newsletter landed in my inbox. Brenda had apparently formed the Cedar Ridge Community Safety Task Force. The letter blended PTA enthusiasm with small-town police blotter tone. We've had reports of unauthorized youths occupying common areas, vaping on docks, and using profanity near families. Our task force will conduct patrols to ensure compliance. Attached was a photo of 3 middle-aged men in cargo shorts and matching polo shirts, all sporting shiny HOA security badges that had clearly been ordered online. Chloe laughed until tears came. "Oh my God, Dad, they made their own cop cosplay." "Relax," I said. "They're just guys with walkie-talkies and cholesterol." But then the task force discovered that Chloe existed. One afternoon, while I was on duty downtown, Chloe drove up to the cabin with a friend to study for finals in peace. I sat on the dock, feet dangling over the water, textbooks scattered around them. That was when a man with a clipboard and an HOA security patch appeared like a summoned pest. "This dock is common property," he barked. "Residents only." "We are residents," Chloe said, turning back to her biology notes. Cabin 14. "My dad owns it. Do you have your Cedar Ridge ID cards?" She blinked. "Our what?" "Community IDs," he said, puffing up. "Required when using amenities." He scribbled something on his clipboard as if issuing citations on a reality show. 2 days later, I received an email titled, "Incident Report. Unidentified females on dock." The report accused Chloe of refusing to identify and potentially belonging to a renter group. I replied carefully, "That unidentified female is my 17-year-old daughter, listed as an authorized household member in my ownership documents. Do not approach her again without cause." I hit send, annoyed but not alarmed. Brenda responded an hour later. "Arthur, security has an obligation to confront suspicious activity. We can't just take anyone's word that they belong. We're rolling out new ID cards soon to prevent further confusion. Please attend the next meeting, where we'll be voting on expanded enforcement authority for our task force. Regards, Brenda Kensington, President, Cedar Ridge Retreat, POA." Expanded Enforcement Authority. The phrase itched. I forwarded the email from my government address to my personal archive, a habit born from years of documenting strange encounters. I still assumed it would remain an argument over name tags and parking decals. I did not expect Brenda to decide she had the power to arrest my kid. I received a second call while sitting in a briefing room, half listening to a presentation on courthouse security upgrades. My phone buzzed. "Chloe, I sent a quick text." "Q, I sent a quick text. In meeting? You okay?" 3 dots appeared. Then, "HOA security dudes are here. They say I'm trespassing." Before I could reply, my phone lit up again, this time with the Ring camera notification from the cabin. I opened the live feed. The image jittered, then steadied on 3 men standing on my front steps in HOA patrol vests. One of them, the same clipboard warrior from the dock, had his hand on a pair of cheap plastic handcuffs. Another was filming on his phone as if documenting a sting for YouTube. Brenda's voice rose from the walkway behind them, shrill and triumphant. "Refusing to leave common property when directed by authorized security constitutes trespassing. We will be taking her into custody until her guardian arrives." I stood up so quickly that my chair tipped backward. "Boss?" one of my deputies asked. "Family issue?" I said, already striding toward the door. "I'll be on comms. Keep the briefing going." I stepped into the hallway, thumbs stabbing a speed dial contact. The call connected on the second ring. "Operations. It's Mitchell. I've got 3 idiots in fake cop gear attempting a custodial arrest on my minor daughter and my property in the Cedar Ridge Lake community, claiming HOA authority." Silence, followed by a low whistle. "You serious?" "I've got it on live camera. Sending you the local Marshals units channel now. Keep streaming." Do not engage unless she's in danger. I switched over, patched in the video feed, and drove like my SUV had a personal vendetta against every speed limit. On the camera, the clipboard guy edged closer to Chloe. "Ma'am, if you refuse to comply, we'll have to arrest you for trespassing and disorderly conduct. You're disturbing the peace." "I'm literally just existing," Chloe replied, taking a step back. "You cannot arrest me. You're HOA security." "We have new enforcement authority," he insisted, his voice wavering. "We voted on it at last night's meeting." "That's not how laws work," she said. Brenda finally stepped into frame, her expression radiant with vindication. "Chloe, dear," she cooed, "this is for your own good. Until your father agrees to pick up your ID cards and review our minor guest policies, you are not permitted on Cedar Ridge common property unsupervised. You're being non-compliant. And custody is the next step." The clipboard guy, emboldened, added his weight to the threat. My deputy's voice crackled through the car speakers. "We're 10 minutes out, Chief. Local sheriff's on board. They've already fielded complaints about this HOA group." "Copy," I said tightly. "I'll hold perimeter." I wasn't sure which infuriated me more, that they were terrifying my daughter, or that they were strutting around, mimicking the language of real law enforcement as if it were a Halloween costume. Either way, they had crossed the line from annoying into criminal, false imprisonment. Impersonating officers attempted unlawful arrest. Brenda believed she had expanded her enforcement authority. She was about to receive an intensive lesson in what actual authority looked like. By the time my SUV skidded into the gravel drive of Cabin 14, the HOA patrol had escalated from cosplay to full-blown fiasco. The clipboard guy stood one step too close to Chloe, clutching the plastic cuffs like a holy artifact. "Last chance, ma'am," he said. "Come with us voluntarily, or we'll have to." "You'll have to what?" A voice cut in. All heads swiveled. I stood at the base of the steps, my ID wallet open in one hand. The gold star of the United States Marshals Service glinting in the afternoon light. "State your names," I said, my voice flat and professional. "Full legal names, and do not lie." "This is being recorded." Brenda recovered first, straightening her blazer. "Arthur, there's no need for theatrics. Our security team is acting within the authority granted by the Cedar Ridge bylaws. Your daughter refused to leave common property, and—" I didn't look at her. My eyes were fixed on the clipboard guy, whose gaze had locked onto my badge and gone very, very wide. "You?" I said. "What's your name?" "Gary," he stammered. "Gary Fenwick. Gary Fenwick." "Are you a certified law enforcement officer in this state, or any state?" He hesitated. That pause was his mistake. "Well, I mean, I did the 8-hour security course, so that's a no," I said. "Are you currently attempting to place a minor in handcuffs and transport her against her will?" "It's not like that," Gary protested weakly. "We're just detaining her." "That's what security does." Chloe stepped away from him and slipped behind me, her shoulders finally relaxing. From down the hill came the crunch of tires on gravel. 2 vehicles, a sheriff's cruiser and a dark SUV with government plates. Brenda turned, blinking rapidly. Who is that?" "Those," I said, "are the people who actually have enforcement authority." The sheriff climbed out of his cruiser, shading his eyes against the sun. The driver of the second vehicle followed. Deputy Marshal Ramirez, whose resting expression hovered somewhere between bored and ready to ruin someone's entire week. "Afternoon, Chief," Ramirez called. "Heard you've got some volunteers playing cops and robbers?" Gary's face drained of all color. The other 2 security guys suddenly found their shoes fascinating. The sheriff walked up the steps, taking in the vests, the light bar still taped to the Kia, the badges. "Ma'am," he said to Brenda, "if you want to explain why your HOA is dressing people up to look an awful lot like law enforcement and trying to detain residents." Brenda's smile was tight, trembling at the edges. "We are simply exercising our right to enforce community standards. Cedar Ridge is private property. Private doesn't mean lawless, I said. You can write violation letters. You can tow vehicles under contract. What you cannot do is slap on a badge, declare someone under arrest, and try to haul them off because they didn't kiss your ring at a meeting. Ramirez lifted Gary's plastic cuffs, examining them with mild disdain. These toys touch her wrists, he said calmly, and you're leaving here in real ones. Gary swallowed audibly. The sheriff turned to me. You want to press charges? Impersonating an officer. Attempted unlawful detention of a minor. Harassment at a minimum, I said. This ends with them never wearing anything that says security again, Ramirez added. And we'll be forwarding all this. He gestured to my phone, to the DA. For the first time, Brenda looked genuinely rattled. You can't do this, she hissed. We voted. The community gave us this authority. I met her eyes, every trace of warmth gone. Brenda, you can hold as many votes as you want, I said. You still don't outrank the Constitution. The HOA board meeting 2 weeks later drew record attendance. It turned out that watching multiple board members get arrested on the president's front lawn was excellent motivation for turnout. They had relocated the meeting from the cramped little office to the Cedar Ridge Lodge, a massive log building that tried desperately to appear rustic despite having been constructed in 2009. I hadn't intended to attend. I preferred to let the systems I trusted, the sheriff's office, the district attorney, internal investigations, handle the fallout in their own time. But then Chloe asked, can we? Kinda want to see how this ends. So I went out and took a seat near the front of the lodge. The remaining board members sat behind folding tables, draped with the Cedar Ridge banner. Brenda was not among them. Instead, she sat in the audience a few rows back, her posture rigid as rebar. A nervous man with a receding hairline cleared his throat into the microphone. Call to order, he said. I'm Greg Miller, acting president. We have several items on the agenda, but clearly everyone is here for item 1, Security Committee actions. A few people chuckled awkwardly. I sat with Chloe about halfway back. Couple of neighbors nodded at us, some grateful, some embarrassed, most both. Greg glanced at the paper in front of him. As you all know, at our last meeting, the board voted to expand the authority of the Community's Safety Task Force. This included uniforms, patrols, and undetainment protocols. He winced visibly. We believed we were acting within our rights as a private association. Believed. Someone called from the back. You had them trying to arrest teenagers. Greg winced again. Harder. Yes. Which was wrong. Legally and ethically. The sheriff and the district attorney have made that abundantly clear. He swallowed, then pressed on. Effective immediately, the security committee is dissolved. All badges, vests, and equipment are to be surrendered to the management office by Friday. A ripple of whispers spread at the word surrendered. As for Ms. Kensington, he continued without looking at her. She has been removed from all officer positions pending the outcome of the criminal case, and is permanently barred from serving in any enforcement capacity, now or in the future. Heads in the room swiveled toward Brenda. Her jaw tightened. For once, she had nothing to grip, no clipboard, no authority. A hand shot up near the front, an older woman leaning on a cane. What about the rest of us? She demanded. You let them act like tinfoil hat cops and terrorize our kids. What's to stop this from happening again with someone else in charge? Greg looked as though he would rather crawl under the table. We're implementing independent oversight, legal review of our covenants, annual training, and, we've asked Mr. Mitchell to say a few words about the difference between real law enforcement and HOA enforcement, so we don't repeat these mistakes. Dozens of heads turned toward me. Chloe elbowed me gently. You kind of have to, she whispered. I sighed, stood, and walked to the front. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I'm not here as your neighbor tonight, I said. I'm here as someone who spent 20 years in an agency that actually possesses the authority some of you pretended to have. I let that settle. Law enforcement power doesn't come from vests or light bars, I continued. It comes from laws, oversight, training, and a whole lot of boring accountability. I looked directly at Brenda. You don't get to invent that because you're upset about who uses the dock. Someone snorted. You want to run a book club, a potluck, a kayak race? I said. Great. You can vote on those. But the moment you start talking about taking people into custody, arresting teenagers who live here because you don't like their attitude, you've left the world of HOAs and entered the world of criminal charges. I pointed toward the tall windows where the lake shimmered beyond the pines. This is supposed to be a retreat, not a Labaji police state. The room erupted into genuine, sustained applause. Brenda remained seated, her face frozen as the board formally voted to dissolve her prize security task force and instead hire an actual off-duty deputy to patrol on holiday weekends. By the end of the night, the HOA patrol vests were piled on a table like trophies from a defeated army. Ramirez, who had come along as a courtesy, picked one up and laughed quietly. Man, he said under his breath to me, I've seen less ridiculous gear in SWAT Halloween costumes. 3 weeks later, Brenda stood in a courtroom wearing a blazer that looked too stiff for her frame, and a face that had gone completely pale. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, peered over her reading glasses at the plea agreement on the bench. Ms. Kensington, she said, her voice carrying the weight of decades of rulings. You have pleaded guilty to misdemeanor impersonation of a public servant and attempted unlawful restraint of a minor. Do you understand that these charges carry serious consequences? Brenda's voice emerged thin and strained. Yes, Your Honor. The judge continued. You are hereby sentenced to 365 days in county jail, suspended pending successful completion of 2 years probation. You will pay a fine of $10,000, perform 500 hours of community service, and you are permanently prohibited from holding any position in any homeowners association, condominium board, or similar governing body. Brenda's knees buckled slightly. She gripped the edge of the defense table. Iwen Mei Yen, she whispered. Your Honor, the judge, raised a hand. Additionally, you are barred from any employment or volunteer position that involves security, law enforcement simulation, or authority over minors. This is a permanent restriction that will remain on your record. The courtroom fell silent, except for the rapid scratch of the court reporter's keys. Brenda turned to glance back at the gallery, and for a single second, her eyes met mine. Wide, glassy, disbelieving. The woman who had tried to build an empire out of clipboards and plastic. Badges had finally learned what real authority looked like when it pushed back. She opened her mouth as if to protest, then closed it again, her face crumpling as the bailiff approached to discuss her probation intake.